Hey guys, Megan Kelly here. Like millions of you, I love true crime content. So this summer, we created the show I always wanted to listen to. We're calling it MK Confidential. One case per week, 5 episodes, Monday through Friday. New episodes every weeknight. John Benet Ramsey, Chandra Levy, the DC Snipers, Scott Peterson, and some you've likely never heard of before. Search for The Megan Kelly Show wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll find it there.
Hey, I'm Dan Harris, host of the 10% Happier podcast. With summer winding down, now is the perfect time to hit the reset button. So many of us get stuck in ruts at work, in our relationships, in our nervous system. We've got a special series where I'm going to be talking to psychologists, meditation teachers, even some comedians about how to get out of that rut, how to reset your life in lots of different super practical ways. 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Join the party wherever you get your podcasts.
The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
This work takes so much from a person. When people ask me about the job, I used to say, there's more cream than there is sour milk. To me, the reward of removing kids from harm outweighed the negative impact on me. That's what I told myself. I mean, how could I say no to helping a kid? I didn't know how. I'm not built that way. From The Ugly Underneath, Navigating the Emotional Toll of Investigating Crimes Against Children by Carlos Rodriquez. Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. So at CrimeCon Las Vegas in 2026, I was on Creators Row with so many other podcasters, organizations, authors, advocates. And I noted this booth with this huge white sign with gray lettering, and it said The Ugly Underneath. I'm like, The Ugly Underneath? I've never heard of that podcast. Well, the sign worked and it caught my attention, and I headed over and I met Carlos Rodriquez, and we talked about his book, The Ugly Underneath, Navigating the Emotional Toll of Investigating Crimes Against Children. All right, if you think that Chris Hansen is an amazing advocate and journalist fighting the good fight, you will love Carlos Rodriquez, who is his law enforcement counterpart. But brace yourself. All right, this book broke my heart, and I found myself grieving for the children while being angry at the monsters who did things to them that changed them and their lives forever, and for the officers who endured dealing with these, bringing this ugly into their lives too, and the damage that was done to them. Now, this is a critically important subject to discuss in true crime. And trafficking of children, exploitation of children, it is happening everywhere. And I'm sorry, you're not insulated from this reality. It's happening. And also, my words are going to be inadequate to express my admiration for what Carlos Rodriquez and his team endured while putting these monsters behind bars so they can't hurt children again. He is a former detective sergeant who specialized in crimes against children and served as an FBI task force officer. He is retired from the Washington State Patrol and has a remarkable background. And his most significant work is on protecting children from sexual abuse and commercial sexual exploitation. This man is simply a national treasure and a subject matter expert who continues this fight against human trafficking. And not surprisingly, he has served as the Chief Program Officer for the International Association of Human Trafficking Investigators, where he helped shape strategy and training initiatives to combat exploitation. And he continues to be a volunteer. Currently, he is an internal investigator for the San Diego Unified School District, where he leads investigations into employee misconduct, student safety, and Title IX violations, and serves as a point of contact for the district's human trafficking prevention program. So I would like to welcome Carlos Rodriquez to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It was such a pleasure to meet you at CrimeCon. I was unaware of your book, The Ugly Underneath, and having read it, and I read very, very quickly. And I think I emailed you at like 3:00 in the morning telling you that the book was keeping me up at night.
Yes.
And it took me several weeks to read it.
Yeah.
And that's very unusual for me. It's a really tough book. And I think you are so brave, and I want to commend you for writing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say the book, and that's why in the beginning, I put a warning in my introduction. I explained that, and then I put content warnings before certain areas, because I don't think the book is. I mean, I'd like everyone to hear it and read it, but I don't think it is for everyone, and everyone should take it at their own pace. Unfortunately, those things happened, and I wrote about them because those things really shouldn't exist. Horrible things shouldn't happen to kids, and unfortunately, it does. Every single day, something horrible happens. But fortunately, there are some great people out there that are doing great things to protect our kids and hold those accountable that do these horrible things.
Thank you, because I'm not sure we give. I hate to use the word heroes because it almost feels cheapened, because every time somebody does anything noteworthy or decent, they're a hero.
Yeah.
But they are heroes, because your book is not just about the horrible things that children experience and go through, and the trafficking and the sexual assault, but it's also about the residual pain and the residual trauma that officers like yourself are dealing with. And I have not read that before.
Yeah, I'll say, so writing the book for me, really, my goal wasn't to write a book. It was to work through some things that I was dealing with myself. And I was going to therapy, and going through that process, I was writing things out. And then as I'm having discussions about these things, I was talking to my therapist, and she said, have you ever thought of sharing this with others? Because I think a lot of people could benefit from this, from the things you did right and the things you didn't get right. And maybe they can avoid some of these things that you've encountered. And it's good for people to get it, because she didn't know about all the things that are out there. I mean, of course, she listens to some horrible things, but just I think the gravity of it. And so I thought about that, and that's why I wrote the book. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He's law enforcement in Florida, and he was talking to me about his journey after we had talked about the book. And he said, thank you for writing this, because people need to hear this more. There isn't something specific just to this that he had heard. Now, there are people out there sharing their story, because I'm not alone in this. I just wrote a book about it, and I'm talking about it. But there are other people out there that have fought this fight to protect our kids and to keep them safe and hold people accountable that do horrific things to our children, that talk about this. But I don't think enough people hear it enough. And when you do the work, it's also difficult. You don't always want to come out and share how you're feeling or what you're going through, because you're afraid that, well, if I say this, they're going to remove me from doing this. And a lot of times this is the person who's doing it, it's their identity, because they're doing it all of the time. And if they don't have that, what do they have? And that's what my friend shared with me is, I left my task force, and, but for another, not even an issue he's having with wellness, just he left and went to something else. And he's like, that was my identity. That's what I was doing, and it was hard for him to cope through that. And I've heard that so many times from different people. So that's also a fear that I think some people have, is not just to admit that, well, yeah, I can talk to someone about this, that this is how I'm feeling, and I feel that there's some damage here, but the fear of if I go tell my agency or my department, and then I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. And then what am I going to do? And what this is my purpose. And so there's some of that. So after having that conversation with him, it made me feel better because my book hadn't come out yet. It was about to come out, but I'd shared this with him, and he says, yeah, you need to sing it from the mountaintops. You need to talk about this as much as you can because people need to hear that, and it'll make them feel better. And just the talk I had with him, he said, made him feel better. And then it made me feel better. I mean, I got a lot out of that conversation with him. And so I think that is important. Why one of the reasons why I wrote the book and why it's out there, even though there are times where some of the things are difficult to read. And I did, and I know it was difficult, but I did sanitize it. I mean, I only shared snippets of different things because if I went in there and I put all the different cases that I worked and I didn't have breaks in, because I built in breaks of different parts of my life, if you don't do that, it's just a book of horrors and just depressing material. And that isn't really what I wanted. I wanted it to be something that someone can gain some value from, maybe heal from, like I healed. And it was healing for me as well, especially now that I'm meeting everyone, all the people I met at CrimeCon. I was just at Dallas Crimes Against Children conference, and all of the people that I met there. And that one, especially because I'm there with people who are in that field right now, doing the work day in and day out. And there's 4,000 to 5,000 people there. I don't remember the final count, from all over the world. And then just meeting them and talking to them, and then having some people come up to me and say, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I met you at this conference. I got your book. It's a really good book. And then telling everyone this, I'm not affiliated with him, but this is a great book.
Whoa.
I had one guy come up to me. He had sent me an email. He saw me on a podcast, got the book, and sent me an email that he was going to go into this line of work. He was a reserve officer. He said that it inspired him to do the work. And then he came up to me last week and said, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm going through the training. I'm doing the work now, and it's because of you. And, we got a picture together, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so this has been great. It's been healing for me. I think it's been healing for others. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted this to help others heal, help people avoid some of the mistakes I made. And then for people such as yourself and your audience to know that this does happen. And the people that are out there doing their work, they're overwhelmed, but they're still doing the work, even if they're giving a little bit of themselves to this work, so that total strangers are okay, that, they need your help. They need your support. They need you to talk to your local law enforcement and say, hey, I want people focused on this. I need more, support. Talk to your legislators. I need them to support this. We need our Stop CSAM Act passed, which is child sexual abuse material. Take It Down Act was passed. I mean, we need more support for that, because this happens all the time. And the officers that do the work, the prosecutors, the people, the doctors that have to see this, on the social side, there just isn't enough funding for this. So there needs to be more. So we can prevent it.
Yes.
2, if it has happened, these kids are getting the resources they need, and their families.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree with you. Something, I'm listening to you talking and I'm saying, my God, it's not that this hasn't occurred to me, but I think I just really got it. The internet had to have made this all so much worse.
Yes. I'll say, everybody thinks it's, stranger danger. Usually it's someone that's known to the child, or it's familial. And now, the weirdo in the park, or the white van, which happens but doesn't always happen. But that person, you really have to worry more about who your kids are talking to online, because now that's the new playground, so to speak. These people are interacting with your kids. And if your kids are online, there are going to be predators out there that are going to try to get what they want. It's just
they're at it 24/7.
Yes.
That is the purpose of their life, is to find a vulnerable kid. And they're all vulnerable. Every single last one is vulnerable.
Yes. And I think the biggest thing, if you're a parent, is to know, how can I be best equipped to keep my kids safe? And that's knowing what they're doing. You should know the passwords on their phones, if they have a phone. Really, if they need a device, it should really be only to communicate if there's an emergency. if they are on social media, have access to everything. Be familiar with what those applications are. Gaming. If you have a little kid, they shouldn't be in a gaming platform where they're able to talk to other people. Disable that. And then if they are, they'll just know, because there gets to be a certain point where you don't want to take away too much from your child, or they're going to be that weird kid, or they're going to be behind all of their peers. And we're in this day and age, this is our world. It's technology. I mean, they're going to be out there. They're going to be in the apps. So what can you do to be best equipped to keep them safe? And then just the different ways that you speak with your kid. I mean, you should be talking to your kids about this, just like you used to say, what do you do before you cross the street?
Right.
Look both ways. So you should have the same conversations about that. It should have the same conversations about, your body is your body. No one is allowed to touch it in any way. And then have the conversations that it's okay for them to come and tell you if something happens, because a lot of people, when they prey on kids, they do it in a way where the kids can feel guilty for what had happened, or if it's someone that they care about, or someone that their parents care about, and they don't want to damage that dynamic or that relationship, they would feel guilty, and that could keep them from coming forward. So they need to know that no matter what it is, that they can come forward. They're not going to get in trouble. It's going to be okay, and have that conversation. And then utilize their peers to have those conversations, because a lot of times kids won't listen to you because you're the parent. So use their nephews, their aunts, their uncles. There's different ways that you can get that information, because it's not always good coming from dad or mom, because, they don't know any better. You're too old. So that's whether we think we're not, but that's the case.
Right. I think there's a little parental fatigue in there. Because when they're born, when they're toddlers, when they're little, you watch them so diligently so they don't fall, so they don't pull something on themselves, so they don't, put their hand on the stove. We drive ourselves crazy into exhaustion. But then, you know what? They don't fall down. They stand up straight. They can put their clothes on. And I think you kind of go, and that's when you have to kick it up in the other direction. Okay, we're not going to go crashing through a glass window.
Right.
But there's all this other going on that you have to be so aware of. And it's exhausting. I have grandchildren. It scares the hell out of me. My girls were raised in the age of video games and all of that, and we did not have them in the house. I was a teacher. How many kids failed classes because they were stuck on their video games till 3:00 in the morning and exhausted, failed. So it was a ban. We had no video games. They are those weird kids. You worry about them being weird, but they were those weird kids. They made it through. But now it's funny. Have you heard of tin cans?
No.
Okay. So it is, think about the old fashioned phone on the wall.
Right.
And there, you enter the numbers that it can call, and it's through the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yes.
So
I have heard of this. Yes.
My granddaughter calls her little friend on the phone, and they can only talk to each other, but it's a little last line. Yes. And you connect the people you want them to connect to so they can speak. They're not emoticoning and all of that. It is absolute genius. And I think it's parents pushing back a little bit.
I remember I'd be down in the basement working on something or watching a show, and then I'd get a text, and it's from my son. And I was like, "Where are you? Did you go to the store with your mom?" And he's like, "No, I'm in my room." I was like, "Come down here." And then I tell him, I go, "We're going to have a conversation face to face." And he'd roll his eyes. I go, "Well, here's the reason why, is if you communicate with someone over text all of the time, you're going to miss cues. You're not going to be able to tell if somebody says no, but they don't mean no, or if somebody says yes, but they really mean no. If someone doesn't want to do something. So you're going to learn how to detect people's body language, how to do these different things, because if you don't, you're not going to know how to read people or how to read a room. And you'll thank me for it later. You're going to be ahead of your peers that don't do that. You're going to know how, if you're in a job interview and you're saying something and you're losing your audience, or maybe you're going the wrong way, so you can switch on the fly. Just little things like that is going to help you so much more when you're older. So I did that with both my kids, and we wouldn't text when we were in the house, because they didn't want to get up. They didn't want to leave their little world. but that's what we did, because I think they needed it. And I think it did help. Both my kids have doing great with their jobs, or they're successful.
They can
very
communicate with
energetic.
their peers?
Yes. Yeah. And adults and other adults, because I think they were afraid at first, to go do those things. So yeah, reading body language, I think, helps a lot. And I think there's certain parts of their generation, and probably this new generation, that don't have that, because you're so busy looking at your phone or scrolling so quickly. Your attention is really limited. It's minimized.
Oh,
Attention's
interpersonal
next to nothing.
relationships. Think about it. Your girlfriend's in one room and you're in another, and you're texting.
Yeah. Have you ever gone out to dinner or work and then you just take a minute to look around at all the tables and see who's on their phones?
Yeah.
Yes. And I do it. I've been guilty of it. So now I try to just, once we start, finish, and then put it to the side, or put it where out of my reach, so I can pay attention and be present.
Yep. I leave it plugged in the kitchen. I usually work my laptop or at the kitchen table, but the phone's not sitting next to me. And oh no, I missed a text message.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get back to you.
It's going to be fun.
World didn't end. Yeah. We'll be all right. We're going to make it through this. Yeah. You said the book kind of came out of therapy.
Yes.
But I was wondering if part of your goal was to humanize law enforcement, because a lot of dehumanization of police officers, disrespect, is going on right now. And I think it's pervasive. I hear that people are retiring as fast as they absolutely can to get out of the job because it's so miserable and negative. Did that blip, or was it just a happy consequence?
No, I think it's definitely connected. And this goes back even before I worked crimes against children. I remember I'd go to break at a restaurant, and it'd be myself and a crew, and we're all in uniform. And you'd have a parent walk by and they'd point at you. Their little kid would be crying, and they'd point at you and say, "You better behave or I'm going to have them take you to jail." And that's the worst thing, and then we'd stop. We usually had stickers or something, and we'd go and talk to them and say, "We're not going to take you to jail." Because with us, firemen got it great. Everybody loves firemen, but police, usually they call you when something's wrong or someone's going to be in trouble. And so for me, I thought it was always, I need to change this little kid's perception, and they know that police are okay and they're not bad and that they can help you. So that was part of it. But then also I did want to humanize the people that are doing the work, because people think, once you put on that uniform and you have that bulletproof vest, you have this armor, everyone just thinks you're a robot and or you're a certain way. And a lot of that comes from, like, that little kid, what were they taught, or what life experience did people have that have that belief? Because they're and that's something that I learned in law enforcement, is this person that I'm dealing with that's giving me these problems, or is being combative or not being nice to me, or for whatever reason, I don't know the journey that they had. I don't know what their interaction was with law enforcement before me. So it's up to me to change that for the better. And sometimes, depending on the scenario, they're not going to like what's going to happen if they've encountered me. But even with that being said, it's my job to do it the right way, the correct way, and treat that person with respect, because that is a person, and continue. I will say, when I started to work the cases with crimes against children, I was more invested in making sure that those cases went all the way. I wanted to make sure they went all the way to the end until they're adjudicated. Because before it was turn the case in, on to the next one. These ones, I wanted to make sure, every little step. If I needed to light a hoop on fire, I'll jump through it to make sure everything is perfect, which I still did that with my work before. But with this, it was just so much better, because a kid is what's at stake. If a prosecutor, was a DUI, which is extremely important. That's why I became a police officer. Someone died from a DUI. But once that case was turned into the prosecutor, if they dealt it or did whatever, I didn't get all up in arms. With these cases, I wanted to make sure I did everything so that a prosecutor they could hold that person accountable to whatever the stiffest penalty. That's what I wanted. So with law enforcement, I think what's painful right now to see is there's a lack of respect, and that's why I get so angry when I see someone in law enforcement do something wrong or inappropriate, because they represent, no matter what uniform they have on, they represent all law enforcement. And they make it so difficult for all of those that are doing it right. And then you get judged, and it gets hard, and it gets tired, and then everything gets politicized. And for me, I never thought I'd be a cop, and then I became a cop. And you know, for my own reasons, which I go into part of that in the book. So for me, it hurts when I see that, because we're trying to do what's right. I mean, I became a cop to arrest DUIs in the beginning, and then it made its way to this, what I did, working crimes against children. But the work is so important, and it's just when you're lumped in, you have people who do bad things. I mean, they need to be held accountable. I'm a big proponent of that. There's no room in law enforcement. Law enforcement needs to be held to a higher standard, because the community has entrusted us with taking care of them. And once you break that trust, it's very difficult to put back. I mean, you can get it back, but it takes a long time to get it back, and it's never the same, ever.
It takes a lot of work. I taught for 30 years, and one thing I noticed about headlines, if it's a police officer, cop does bad thing, or teacher does bad thing. You don't see plumber does bad thing, electrician, but because of these occupations, which are so critical, that trust of the public is critical. And in both our cases, we're involved with kids. So if a teacher did something bad, I felt the pain.
Yes.
I didn't do anything bad, but you're lumped in there. So, I mean, it's a far cry from what law enforcement goes through, but I can relate to what you're saying somewhat.
Yeah, we had a case, something happened. So I work for a school district now, and something, I could talk about this because it was in the news. So something happened where a teacher was arrested for soliciting sex from a minor. They did a sting down here and was arrested, and they were a coach.
Oof.
So the staff, the school site, they had talked to the athletes that he was their coach, and because they had a lot of questions, the athletes had a lot of questions. So we talked to them, and one of them asked, how can I ever trust? I trusted this person. How can I ever trust again? How am I supposed to trust the other teachers? And I shared a story, which is one of the chapters in the book. It's called The Teacup. And I shared that story, and without giving away everything for that chapter, but when I was a kid, I did something bad, and my mom gave me this teacup, and she told me, I want you to take this teacup and break it. And I thought she was crazy. But she's like, no, I want you to break it. So I smashed this teacup, and then she put some glue on the table, and she said, okay, now put it back together, and left. So I spent about 30, 40 minutes putting this back together, and told her when I thought I was done. And then she comes back and sits down and says, okay, now is that teacup the same? And of course it was not the same. And her point was, she told me, she's like, mijo, trust is like a teacup. Once you break it, it will never be the same. And she ultimately told me, but it doesn't mean that I will never trust you again. It's just we have to put it back together piece by piece.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And so I shared this with them. I think it hit home. The principal afterwards was very appreciative. And then he had myself and my boss, who used to be a prosecutor, prosecuting human trafficking cases. We went and we addressed all the staff for that site. And this was before I wrote the book. And so after that, I thought, I think that'd be a good message in the book, because that theme throughout my life, with what we talked about earlier with law enforcement, with what I did as a kid, with mistakes I made in my life, has rung true. And I have plenty of broken teacups that aren't quite right. I think we all do. But yeah, it's a good message. I actually had little pins made of those little teacups, and I wear it on my jacket, my lapel.
Oh, that's so nice. I like that. That's great. Well, I'm glad you were there to answer that child's question. Because if you weren't there and he hadn't asked that, you wonder, it's a friction, because you can't get an answer, and it festers inside you. I'm glad you were there for that.
Yeah, I was glad I got to be a part of that. And we also shared with them, that crime, because it was purchasing sex with a minor. What I found in the cases I've worked, and my boss as well, who's a prosecutor, prosecute those cases, is those crimes, it isn't something where they're preying on kids in their immediate access to because they're going and paying for it, and it's behind the scenes. They don't want anyone to know they're purchasing sex. And there was no indication that he had offended on any students, any of the students at the district. But still, it's something, that was my teacher, that was my coach. What am I going to do? So, and then there's just so many answers, and, your brain goes everywhere. So I could totally understand that.
Sure. And they don't have the life experience to evaluate certain individuals. We're all individuals. People make bad choices and all of that. Oh my gosh. So you're in a school.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to give advice or look out for these signs, what do people, I don't care if they're parents, teachers, it doesn't matter, but what can people do to be aware of this? It's happening everywhere.
So if we're talking specifically about human trafficking, for human trafficking with adults, you need force, fraud, or coercion. With kids, you don't need that. Minors can't consent. So it's anything of value in exchange for the sex act. So with that, really the signs you want to look out for are they in a demanding relationship with someone that's overly controlling? Do they have multiple phones? Who kids need multiple phones? It's either trafficking or some type of drug or illegal activity. Are they very, always hiding their devices? Are they missing a lot of school? That's what we see at the schools. They're just not showing up. Things like that. The other things you want to look out for if you're looking for child exploitation which could be sextortion. So you could have your child could be online speaking with someone they think is of the same age of someone that they're sexually interested in. They're asking for explicit images of them. Then they finally send it. Maybe they send it without their face first, then they get them to show them their face. And then next thing you know, they get something back it's a poster of them saying they're a pedophile, or, I'm going to send this to all your friends. And they do a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, to get more images. From what I've seen in the investigators that I've just talked to here recently with that, with men or boys, generally they'll try to extort money out of the young man. With girls, they try to get more images. And it gets to the level because it's so stressful and it escalates so quickly that you had some of our young kids take their own lives. Yeah. So with that, if there's anyone that listens, that's our parents or their kids are going to listen to this, just know if that has happened to you, that it is not the end of the world. Yes, it's horrible and it may be embarrassing, but if you don't send it to them, if you do send it to them, don't send them anymore because they're just going to go to the next person. If it is put out there, it's put out there. You're going to live, you're going to get through it. But it's much better for you to be here on this earth with your family and those that love you because they need you here. So no matter what the situation is, whether it be this or something else where you just feel like that's the choice, it's not the choice. Because I've had friends who have done that, and I wish they were here. I wish they were here so I could hug them. I wish they were here so I could talk to them. And it's okay to have conversations. So if you think someone is not feeling right, it's okay to tell them, hey, I don't know if you're feeling like you're feeling some sort of way, or if you're depressed, because sometimes you don't want to push, but just say, I just want you to know, if you ever feel that way, that I wouldn't survive without you. It wouldn't be easier for me. I need you here. I love you. This is why. Yes. And have that conversation. Because I have had that conversation with people and they've told me, I was feeling that way. I didn't admit it at the time, but that helped me. So it's okay to have that conversation with the people that you love. They love you, and it's okay, even if they maybe are upset with you at the time. Maybe that isn't the case. They're just having a bad day, but it's never wrong to tell someone that you want them in your life and that you love them. I think people will always appreciate that.
This is Jess Betancourt, the host of DNA ID, the only true crime podcast that exclusively covers cold cases solved using investigative genetic genealogy, known as IgG. This incredible crime-solving tool has revolutionized criminal investigations and John and Jane Doe identifications, and has closed over 1,000 cases. We are now receiving case solve announcements almost daily. DNA ID goes behind the headlines to answer your questions about IgG, how it works, how cases are selected, why the cases were unsolved for so long, and how the justice system is addressing the whole thing. In its over 160 episodes to date, you'll hear about famous cases like April Tinsley, Jennifer Bastian, and Michaela Welch, and fascinating cases you've never heard of, like Patty Stichler and Troy and LaDonna French. DNA ID focuses on the victim with a compassionate, straightforward, and no-nonsense delivery. I predict DNA ID will be your new binge-worthy obsession. And if you're one of the bad guys, they are coming for you.
So I think those are some of the things that are flags.
Right.
And I know there's some things I probably missed there. At the school district, we created this system where if people, and it can be anyone in the school, students, anonymous, it's open to the public. If they believe someone is being trafficked or being exploited, we created a process where they can report it through our website. If it's something that's happening immediate or an immediate danger, it directs them to law enforcement. If it isn't, it just goes through, there are a bunch of red flags listed, and they can just check the boxes for those red flags. And then we can see, okay, do we need to make contact, with the student? What resources do they need? Maybe their parents lost their job and they don't have food or their money. Maybe they're going to be evicted. And then we've developed relationships with organizations that can provide those resources and those services for them, because we're trying to reduce vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So, and because if you have, okay, I'm a kid, maybe a single mom lost her job, now she's doing these, maybe she's turning to survival sex so that they can eat, then maybe the kid thinks that's a good job, or they don't do that. So they're working 2 jobs, never home, and then the kid's alone. Maybe they're doing things that they shouldn't do, or maybe they're depressed. So trying to minimize all of these things so that they don't become vulnerable. And then we can reduce, hopefully, the caseload for some of these investigators that do this, or it's one less person that, because I used to see the tail end of it. I saw the bad part, right? Where these things had already happened. Now that the school district, I'm in a position where I'm in a different lane. I have a different job, and I can still help kids, but maybe I can prevent some of those things from happening. So that's what's really cool about the program that we're doing, and we're still putting together. I stopped by and I saw some people, the detectives from the Internet Crimes Against Children this morning. It was really great. I just gave them my book. I met them 2 weeks ago, and I met one of their sergeants, and I asked how many detectives they have, and I just came and brought the books and and some challenge coins. Here you go. And then we ended up having a really cool talk about wellness while we were there. And I'm getting off on a tangent, but we had a great talk about wellness. And I didn't really say much. I just said what I was doing. If they need what we were doing, if they need a resource, here's the book. But at the end, one of the detectives was talking about wellness and compartmentalizing things. And they had a doctor there that he was asking the questions to for wellness, and a part of the team. And the things he was saying about compartmentalizing things and what he does and the things that he heard. And he goes, now that he's not working the cases all the time, he's in a different role there at the task force, about how it's affecting him, and the things that he's thinking and how and it was just hitting home. I was like, man, did you read my book already? Because I talked about that. I talked about that, and I could just relate with him. And then I asked if I could say something. I thanked him for sharing. And then I said, when I wasn't doing the work and I moved down here to San Diego and I started to feel again, and I got a little choked up, and then other people got choked up. But the thing was, I started to feel things again. And then I learned, because I had someone helping me in therapy, that when you start to feel again, that means you're healing.
Yes.
Because I had shut so many things off that I didn't feel everything. I didn't.
Well, you can't.
No, you don't control what you shut off and what turns back on.
Right. It's not that you just pop the top off, let it out, pop the top back on. It doesn't work that way. When you start to hurt, we naturally protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's probably the worst thing you can do, is to close that all down, because it really doesn't go away.
And I'll say, so compartmentalizing things it's a skill set. I mean, I think it is a good skill, because if I wasn't able to do that, and the people that do this work were not able to do that, they wouldn't get anything done. So you have to shut certain things off so you can focus on the mission. The problem is if you leave it inside, if you put it in a box and store it away and you never open it up, it's going to eat you up. and it's going to affect you negatively in many different ways, and not just at work, because it will affect your work, but it'll affect your home life. And so you have to have those releases. You have to have that friend you can talk to, know how to do things to be healthy, to minimize that, because there's going to be some damage. I don't see how you could do this work where you're investigating these crimes and to hear and see the horrible things that you see. I don't know how you can do that without being damaged. I think it's impossible. And I'm an optimist. I think that there's always a way. But you being damaged doesn't mean that you're broken. And it doesn't mean that you can't heal. And that's a big message that I wanted to push through this, is because I'm happy. I have good days, bad days, but more good days. And I still get to do some great things. So, and now I know it's okay to feel the things I feel, and I can't, like today I was a little embarrassed because I didn't keep it together. But then one of the sergeants, she's like, well, now I'm getting that way. And we had a really good talk. And then afterwards I had to go somewhere, but getting out of there was difficult because different people wanted to talk to me, and I wasn't going to say no. I mean, I had a great time this morning. Yeah. And then I wasn't late for my next meeting, so it worked out. But they're a great team. I mean, San Diego Internet Crimes Against Children team, they're amazing. They're passionate. And so if you live in this area down here, feel fortunate that you have that group working for you. They're amazing. There are 61 internet crimes against children across the nation. And that's what their sole purpose is to work those cases. And they need our support. They need our help so that they can continue to do that. They need more resources. And that comes from the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, yeah. So there are resources out there. Sometimes it needs to be redistributed, because I think some things are more important than others. And the thing is, this is all interconnected, because I used to work narcotics. I did it for about 4 years. We focused on mid to upper level drug trafficking organizations, or DTOs. And that was extremely important because that wrecks a lot of lives. But then when I started working these cases, I started to see, well, what are these kids running from? What's happening at home? Why are they making the decision to take drugs? Why are they making the decision to go live in the street? Because what's happening here? So focusing on these crimes and holding these people accountable hopefully can reduce some of those things. And that's when we started to do more of the online undercover chats, because we would run those. I'd run those ops. We went through training through ICAC. Made sure everything was right. And we started running these operations about 4 to 5 times a year in Washington State. They're called demand ops, or some people call them peer-to-peer ops, traveler ops. But it's like what most people think To Catch a Predator is, except we don't have Chris Hansen waiting there. It's just law enforcement. And so we would run these ops where I'd pretend to be a mom with kids, that were available for this, or I grew up in a family of incest. All these different scenarios, but they were all scenarios from cases we had worked. So we didn't make any of this stuff up, except I wasn't that person, and I didn't really have kids. And I had decoys. We had young troopers or young officers that looked like they were young. And so we would do that, and then these people would show up thinking they were going to have sex with these kids. And the ages we focused on were 13 and younger. And the youngest that someone showed up for was 3 years old. And then that's just that part, right? So when we put this, I had this great team of people that would all come together, and we'd have someone that would write search warrants, someone who would do knock and talks, and that's where you'd go. If you didn't have enough probable cause to get a search warrant, you could do what we call a knock and talk, or we would do it afterwards if we learned that they had access to kids and their kids at the house, to do a safety interview, safety talk. A lot of times spouses don't know what's going on, or don't know that their husband or boyfriend is over trying to have sex with a kid. So we want to make sure they're safe and do that the right way. We would take an advocate, let them, once it was safe, let them speak with them, because usually people will talk to an advocate versus a police officer. We'd have people who could do the digital forensics right there. We had arrest teams, people who were trained to chat, they'd be the chatters. We had someone who would run logistics, and we just had all these teams, and we would run those operations, and we do that for about a week at a time. And we're very efficient. We did all over the state. And then we would start to, I think we would average about 7 arrests a night for 13 and younger, which is horrible.
Yeah.
But it was, unfortunately, it was necessary for us to do, because it didn't dry up. It just kept happening. Even though these were in the news and everything, people would still show up. And we could probably have done more in a night, but as a supervisor, my goal and other supervisors who we had there, because we'd all each have different roles, you have to look at what's one of the things that affects those types of operations the most is fatigue, the fatigue of your people. Because if you don't monitor that, then they'll make little mistakes. It could be forgetting something in a report. It could be maybe someone gets irritated and then you have a use of force. So just all of these little things, you forget to do something. So those are all of the things that we had to watch for. We'd monitor and we'd keep it within a certain schedule. But if there was a target, we'd call the suspects a target, the ones that wanted to come and do bad things to kids. So that target, if we had someone who was off that schedule, we would just put together a smaller team that would handle that, so we wouldn't lose that. Because I remember chatting. There were times where I'm chatting with people, and I would feel upset if, like, oh man, no one came in. You know, this person I talked to all this time didn't come in. I feel some shame. It's like I wasn't successful. You know, they quit talking to me. Did they find a kid? Did they find a kid? Did they find someone that's not law enforcement? So that would really weigh on me. But then I started to talk. I talked to one of my friends. He's in the book. His name's James Muir. And he's like, homie, you were talking to that person for this amount of time. That means they weren't talking to a kid during that time. I go, so you have to look at it a little bit differently. But a lot of people did come in. And we did remove a lot of people from the community that could do harm. And then the tail end. So once you do all that, then you have the interview. You have, are they hands-on with somebody? And then if they have access to kids, were they hands-on there? Are we getting disclosures from that? And we did get disclosures where they had harmed other kids. We had one case. This guy was in Oregon, Pendleton, Oregon. We were in Tri-Cities, Washington. So it's kind of the middle of the state. And he drove over. And he was in a home where he's supposed to be taking care of these elderly people. So he snuck out in the middle of the night, drove to us thinking he was going to have, I won't say exactly what it was, but it was with a 6-year-old. And we arrest him. And then last year, I talked to a prosecutor from Oregon. So he got out of prison in Washington. And then he went right to jail in Oregon because during our interview, we discovered he had offended on 2 minors. And so they prosecuted him over there. And he's still in prison, but now in Oregon. So that made me feel really good that we were successful with that. So it's things like that. I mean, he can't offend on any other people. And it isn't just, a fake person. These people are showing up with the intent. They've made substantial steps to carry out these crimes. So I'm sure we have helped more people than we know, prevented more things. I mean, I don't know how you put a number on that.
Yeah.
But I think did so many good things, and they're still doing it. They're amazing.
It's an absolute good, is that you're removing this evil. I just want to say to you, it's called pathology trumps intellect.
Yeah.
They know it's wrong. They know it's going to destroy their lives and their loved ones and anybody else they care about, but it's pathology and they can't stop themselves. Pathology always trumps intellect.
Yeah, something I learned from, his name's Dr. Joe Sullivan. The guy is amazing. He's from Ireland, and he trains on interviewing sex predators. And one of the things he taught me was, he calls it the cycle of offending, but I won't go into all of it. But one of the things I learned from him is 2 of the things that usually keep someone from doing something that they fear they're going to get in trouble for is the fear of getting caught or the morality of it. They know they shouldn't do it, but they can't control themselves. So they build up a wall to keep them from doing it. But then they'll do other things that they convince themselves that this will keep me from doing this. So I don't want to do this to this kid, so I'm going to watch these images or these videos, and that'll keep me from doing it because that'll feed that. Or I'll go work at a school, or I'll be a coach. What they're doing is they're actually feeding that drive to offend, and they're creating an opportunity. They're putting themselves in a position, creating an opportunity to offend. So when they do those different things, it's like building a ladder, one rung at a time to get over that wall. And then they offend. And then once they offend, then it's like, oh no, am I going to get caught? Or
that's it. I'm never going to do it again.
The shame. Yes. And then they do it again. And then eventually that wall gets lower and lower and lower the more that they offend. That's why you have some people you see in the news that are just so bold with the things that they do. It's like, man, why would they do that? because they've been doing it forever, and then they finally were not getting caught, and it just came to think, oh, well, I'm just do this. It became their norm.
Yeah.
But I saw that a lot, after it being explained to me, and that really helped me with my investigations on trying to understand people, that do these things.
Yeah, it's hard to understand people who do these things. And I give you credit for being able to have a civil conversation, because I know you see the end goal is to put this person away where they can never harm a child again.
Yes.
But getting through that, talk about, you come out of a room, you're covered with fleas because you've been with this person.
Yeah.
Hearing their crazy justification, I can react. You can't react when you're doing that.
And doing that, you're afraid. I mean, I remember I would be like, you have little tales. Everybody does. I'm like, did this person just see that I'm disgusted? Or did they, am I going to give this away? Am I going to hurt my own interview because of a reaction that I've had? So I had to step out. I only had to step out twice. I remember on the last time I had to step out, I took a break. That was the person who showed up for a 3-year-old and another kid, but the 3-year-old was the youngest. And that person was a sex offender already. And we had found out where he worked. We were surveilling him, followed him all the way to the location, what he did. He was arrested. And in the middle of the interview, I had to step out because of the things he was saying. And I took a breath. I got back. I had this thing where I would tell myself to breathe, settle, focus. And I was pacing, telling myself, breathe, settle, focus, breathe, settle, focus. Got back together, went back in, finished the interview. And I remember, so when I interviewed these people that showed up for that, we already had them dead to rights with everything that's on the phones, the conversations they've had. If there was a phone conversation, they showed up, they took the substantial steps. They bring things with them sometimes, gifts for the kids, all these different things. So with this one, so when I'm interviewing, what my mindset is I need to get into their phone to see what other evidence we can find. So I want passwords. The other thing is, do they have any other live victims? And then, because in Washington State, the people that showed up for attempt rape of a child, if it's 11 or younger, at this time, I don't know if it's changed, but 11 or younger, I think it's 10 years to life. So they're indeterminate sentences. If it was 11 or 12, it was 5 years to life. So my goal is I want to ask questions and get information so that when it's their time to potentially get out, there are going to be questions for whoever's on that board to ask. So if I can get them more information. So I remember asking this person, I asked him, I go, when you were in the house and you saw the police in their vests, the arrest team arresting you, I go, what was the first thought that came into your mind? And he was like, well, I was scared, I was sad. And I remember he told me some BS. And I remember asking him, I was like, no, we've been sitting here, we've talked for a while, gotten to know you. I think it was Norman. I've gotten to know you. No, really, what was going through your mind? Just tell me. I really want to know. And he said, well, I was sad. And I was sad because I knew I wasn't going to get what I came here for. And inside, I'm jumping up and down because I'm like, yes, got you. This is good. That's a great statement. But I couldn't show that on the outside.
Oh,
and I don't remember what I said after that. But he's still in prison. The majority are still in prison. I think some of them, from when I did those, because it's been about 10 years with some of those, I think they're eligible for parole or get out, and the majority are lifetime sex offenders.
Why do we parole these people? I'm sorry, they don't get fixed.
Yeah, I don't know the data on that. I know most of the people I encountered were either wired that way. Some needed to be committed because there was something where they should be in a facility and not prison, and then or it's the power and control over it. It's not even the sex aspect of it. It's the controlling and doing harm to something else. There's that sick part in society, and I've met some of those people.
They're never going to not be predators.
The way I had it explained to me was, if I were to try to convince you that it was okay to have sex with children, you would say, hell no. No way.
Right.
What do you think? I'm looking at the look on your face and it's of disgust and shaking to shiver. There's no way, right? Well, if you flip that and try to tell them that it's not okay, that's their response. So I mean, if you think of it that way, they're just wired differently. I asked one of my friends, who's a doctor about that. I go, do you think that anyone could be changed? And he said, well, it's possible, but it would be like deep. It could be like 20 years up there because it's just how they're wired. It's like if I thought the sky was red my whole life,
Right.
and then finally find out it's blue, it'd be very difficult for me to grasp that because to me, it's always been red. So, and that's how some people who are raised in families where, there's familial sex, there's incest and things like that. Those are difficult things to cope with until they know what the norm is.
Right.
But, if that's all they knew, then how are they going to know any different? And I've seen some of that where you see these kids, or I've had people, I've interviewed someone and they told me, I didn't know that this wasn't what everyone else did at their house. I thought everybody did this until one of my friends told me, no, that's not, you can't talk about that. Your family's going to get in trouble because they were being abused.
Right. For children who are abused, my heart goes out to those kids and their past and what's happened to them. And it's wrong and it should never happen. You're trying to, roll that back, the twisting of what is normal and acceptable and what you can do to kids.
And I want to say that just because someone has been abused as a child, and I just want to clarify it for your audience so no one misperceives what we're talking about. That doesn't mean that they're automatically going to offend on other people. I don't want anyone to think that's what we're saying because we're not.
Oh God, no.
So that doesn't mean that has happened. But I will say from the different trainings I've gone to, because people don't always tell you the truth when they're being interviewed by a cop. But the trainings I've gone to is some of the, people will say more, once they're in a different setting, that they were abused, and then they did these things. But it's still, yes, it's horrific because I had a case I talked to a prosecutor about because he was a hammer and he put this person away for a really long time. And their story of what had happened, and it was true because he said I had to go through this person. They did, I don't know what they call, but it's an assessment to see where they are. And there were all of these horrible things happen to this person, and the prosecutor had a really difficult time. I mean, this person still was put away for a long time for what they had done, but he had a difficult time just because he felt bad because of everything she had gone through. So that was. Yeah, he told me because I still have a hard time with this. I think looking back now, was like too easy? I mean, she was put away for a long time, but he was a hammer. I mean, he always went for the highest sentences, which not all prosecutors do that. It just depends, I guess, where they're located. I don't know the reasonings. I wasn't a prosecutor. But.
Well, it's a whole different thing going on over there. Yeah. Carlos, is there anything else you want to get out? Go.
I'll say the biggest thing is if you are out there doing this work, know you're not alone. There are other people out there that are experiencing the same things, that are going through the same hurdles and the same roadblocks. My hope is that you just persist, overcome and get through it, make friends. These cases are hard. It's much easier to get through these things when you have friends. So do that. And just know you're not alone. There are times you're not going to feel bad, and it's okay to feel that way. We all feel different ways. I may feel things in my life, my journey was different than yours slightly, but that's okay. We can relate. If you have a family member that does this work, just know that sometimes when they come home and maybe you think that they don't want to be around you or talk to you, it isn't something bad that you did. They're just maybe processing something. And when people say, I'm good, if you feel that something's not right with your spouse or your coworker, your dad, your sister, whoever does the work, trust that feeling because there's something not right. And then just try to work together to get it done and to make it right and try to help them. But be patient because it's not easy. There's no correct answer. But I think that's it. And I will say now in the law enforcement space, we're so much better off than we were 10, 20 years ago with understanding this, but we still have a lot of work to do. And part of that is, like I chose to share my story. There's a lot that I didn't share. The book could have been like 4 books, but I think it was just enough. And then it's given me the opportunity to meet people like you and share my story and talk about it and try to help others, because I think that's what's important. We have to keep our people healthy that are doing this work, because it's needed. Unfortunately, it's necessary.
Thank you for that. I hate to say this because you're so heartfelt about doing this work. Should there be like a min-max? You can be in it for 5 to 10 years and then you have to go out?
So each agency is different. So some have its 3-year rotation, 4-year rotation, 5-year. The thing is when you become a detective or you go into specialty positions, whatever it's called, it usually takes you about 2 years to start having all the tools that you need. And depending on funding, you can't always get to the training you need. I mean, it took me 2 years to get to the interview training that I really needed to get to. So I think the big thing is having a good command structure, leadership that actually understands what you're doing and taking care of your people. And everything has a shelf life. I mean, I think you could leave it for a minute. Like with me, I was a supervisor, but I think I could have promoted and gotten into a position where then I'm back over that unit. And with all the knowledge I had, help make sure that they're equipped and fight for them in a different way. I mean, one of my peers, I knew this guy forever as a trooper and then sergeant. And then he did this work with me on the east side. And now he's a lieutenant over my old task force. And that guy, and I told him this, he didn't agree with me, but he's wrong. He's going to do so much more than I ever did because he has done all the work. He understands it. And now he's in a position where he can make other decisions in a different way. And as he continues to promote, if he goes up, he's going to make sure, and that's his legacy. Because that's what my legacy is I instilled in my people at the time that when I left, if this ceased to exist, then I failed. And I told them, do not let me fail.
Right.
And they continued it, and they're continuing it. And so I'm living on through them, even though 2-3 years, no one's going to remember my name. They may not remember it now there, except for the people I worked with. But if they continue that legacy, and I told them, and then when you're gone, you need to make sure 2 years in, you need to be identifying the people that you want to work with, that you want to replace you.
Right, to bring up the next.
Yes. It has to be 2 years in advance, and you need to continue that. And if you don't do that, then you have failed. And we can't fail. The mission is too important. What's at cost? It's kids. Yeah. So do it. Do what needs to be done. And we can make this a better place and do it the right way. Do it through policy change, do it through, law enforcement. You have a lot of restrictions, but there's a reason for that. It's because a lot of people have done things the wrong way. And so you need to do it the right way. Criminals have it easier because they don't have to follow the rules. We have to follow rules, but we need to protect people's rights. We need to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So you aren't getting, someone that didn't do something. So I'm a big believer in that. If there are restrictions, then do the extra work. Yeah,
do it right. Cross those T's, dot those I's. And
if something's too restrictive and is wrong, then fight and get it changed.
Yeah, then it's worth doing the good fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. This has been absolutely amazing. Fantastic conversation.
Yes, it was great to meet you. I haven't got my booth or whatever yet for the next Crime Con, but we're going to try to be there in Orlando.
I have applied too. You never know. You sit back and you dangle until they make their decisions.
Yes.
But I'm hoping to be there too, because then we'll have a really good time, because now we know each other so much better.
Yes.
Awesome. Listen, I appreciate your honesty and your bravery for putting it out there and addressing issues that really were sitting in those little boxes. And I think you're continuing to make a huge difference.
Thank you. That makes me feel really good. Thanks.
Well, Murder Bookies, I am deeply grateful that Carlos came on to have this difficult but terribly important conversation. And I hope that we are all more aware of how these cases impact the officers who are going out there, catching the bad guys, putting the monsters in jail. Protecting children and vulnerable people remains Carlos's focus, and we should all be deeply committed to safeguarding children and those on the front line who do this vital work and struggle with the emotional damage that they inevitably suffer in response. Now, I have links to purchase Carlos's book on my blog at www.murdershelfbookclub.com, August 2026. Now, in 2 weeks, this conversation is going to continue. In The Ugly Underneath, Carlos concludes his book advocating for the organization Raven. It is a nonprofit advocacy organization dedicated to protecting children from online exploitation and abuse. Led by child protection experts and retired law enforcement commanders, the group works to reform policies, secure government funding for frontline task forces, and holding technology platforms accountable. I have invited Executive Director of Raven, Jennifer Dutton, to speak in depth about what Raven does. And that episode will be out in 2 weeks, so please subscribe so you do not miss a thing. Our featured book, A Monster in Mount Pleasant by C.J. Williams, Part 1, is dropping next week. And again, cases that I had never heard of before. 3 homicides that haunt an idyllic town for decades until perseverance results in an arrest. Iowa, you are up next. Feel free to send me your questions and comments at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com or connect with me on X, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I truly appreciate your support, and I couldn't do this without you and my Patreon murder bookies who help me choose the books I feature on my podcast. You can support me by joining Patreon. There is a free tier as well as a $2 a month tier and a $4 a month tier if you really love me that much. That gives you access to our Zoom episodes and extra content. We meet on Zoom on the first Thursday of each month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I cannot wait to discuss what comes up next in true crime, in books, in these cases. Trust your gut. I see you as you hear me. And remember, lock your doors and windows. Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved. Music, The Pewter Elephant by Blue Dot Sessions.
Hey, I'm Dan Harris, host of the 10% Happier podcast. When life gets a little rough, sometimes we feel this overwhelming urge to fix everything, which really is impossible. So I've got a new series coming up called Reset, where we're going to help you find simple, practical, surgical ways to reset key areas of your life. The lineup is incredible. We've got people like Gretchen Rubin, Laurie Santos, Atul Gawande, and The Daily Show's Josh Johnson. 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Join the party wherever you get your podcasts.